At 17, he had almost no money. But he noticed something most people completely ignored. While everyone was using AI, gaming, and new technology, he started asking a different question. What if the biggest opportunity wasn't the AI everyone was talking about, but the technology quietly powering it? So he started digging deeper. And one company kept appearing in almost every part of the story: NVIDIA. But here's where things get interesting. He wasn't a millionaire, he wasn't a Wall Street expert, and he didn't have thousands of dollars to invest. He had only a small amount of savings and one crazy idea: learn everything he could before making a decision. What happened next would completely change the way he looked at money, technology, and the future. He opened his laptop and started researching NVIDIA. At first, he only knew the company because of gaming graphics cards, but the deeper he looked, the more interesting the story became. These powerful chips weren't only helping gamers, they were becoming essential for artificial intelligence and massive computing systems. He started connecting the dots between AI, data centers, robotics, and advanced computers. Suddenly, NVIDIA looked much bigger than a gaming company. It looked like a company sitting in the middle of a technological revolution. But understanding a company was one thing. Putting his own money behind that idea was something completely different. So he kept researching. He studied what NVIDIA actually sold and who was buying its technology. He learned why GPUs had become so important to modern AI. He discovered why companies were spending huge amounts on computing infrastructure. And the more he learned, the bigger the opportunity seemed. But he also discovered something important. Big opportunities always come with big risks. A company can have amazing technology and still face competition, changing demand, and unexpected problems. He couldn't predict the future. He could only research the present and make the best decision he could. There was just one problem. He didn't have much money, so he decided to start small. He found a part-time job at a local coffee shop. Every shift meant a little more money saved, and every dollar brought him closer to his goal. Of course, there were plenty of things he wanted to buy. A brand new gaming computer was sitting right in front of him. For a moment, spending the money looked much more exciting than saving it, but he walked away. That decision taught him something before he even invested. Money isn't only about how much you earn, it's also about what you choose not to spend. Weeks passed. His savings slowly grew, and his knowledge grew with them. He researched NVIDIA, AI demand, competitors, and the semiconductor industry. He didn't want a random prediction from social media. He wanted to understand the actual business. Eventually, the moment he'd been waiting for arrived. He opened his laptop. His finger hovered over the buy button. This wasn't imaginary money anymore. This was his real money. He took a deep breath. Then he remembered why he had started researching. He wasn't trying to get rich overnight. He was investing in an idea he believed had long-term potential. So he made his decision. He bought a small position. For a few seconds, he simply stared at the confirmation screen. There was no celebration. No pile of money appeared. Nothing dramatic happened. And that was his first lesson. Real investing can be incredibly boring. The next morning, he checked the market. The price had barely moved. The day after that, it moved again. Sometimes up, sometimes down. Then one morning, the chart started falling. He stared at the red numbers. His confidence suddenly disappeared. What if he had made a mistake? What if everyone else was right? What if AI wasn't going to become as important as he thought? The questions filled his head. Then his friends made things worse. They told him to sell before he lost even more. For a moment, panic almost won. He opened the sell button, but then he stopped. He remembered something important. A falling price didn't automatically mean his original research was wrong. So instead of reacting emotionally, he went back to the beginning. He reread his notes. He checked the technology. He studied the industry again. Then he asked himself one simple question. Has the reason I invested actually changed? The answer wasn't obvious. But he realized something. The short-term price was only one part of the story. The bigger question was whether AI computing demand could continue growing. So he kept learning. He studied how data centers worked. He learned why powerful chips mattered for AI models. And he began seeing technology as an entire ecosystem. The market was no longer just a number on his screen. It represented businesses, customers, technology, competition, and expectations. That changed the way he thought about investing. Instead of asking, "Will the price go up tomorrow?" he started asking, "What could make this business stronger 5 years from now?" That question required patience, and patience was harder than he expected. Some days, the market looked exciting. Other days, it looked terrifying. But he stopped checking every few minutes. He focused on school, work, and learning. Then something started changing. Artificial intelligence was becoming impossible to ignore. More companies were experimenting with AI. More businesses were investing in computing power. More developers were building AI applications. And behind that technology was an enormous need for computing infrastructure. He watched the trend carefully. He didn't assume every AI company would succeed. He simply kept studying where the demand was going. And slowly, the market started noticing it too. The chart began moving upward. At first, only a little, then a little more. Weeks passed. The green numbers became more noticeable. He checked his portfolio again. This time he smiled, but he didn't immediately celebrate. Because he remembered how quickly things could change. He had finally learned that confidence wasn't the same as certainty. Then the AI boom became even more visible. Companies everywhere were talking about artificial intelligence. New AI tools appeared almost every week. Businesses wanted faster computers. Researchers wanted more powerful systems. And data centers needed enormous amounts of computing power. The technology he'd researched months earlier was becoming part of a much bigger story. He realized he hadn't predicted the future. He had simply spent time understanding a trend before it became obvious. And that distinction mattered. Investing isn't about knowing everything. It's about understanding what you can, recognizing what you don't know, and managing risk. His portfolio had grown, but the biggest thing he'd gained wasn't money. It was a completely different way of thinking. He learned that time can be more powerful than excitement. He learned that research can be more valuable than rumors. And he learned that panic can destroy a good decision. He opened the notebook where the entire journey had started. The first pages looked almost childish now, but every page represented another question he had asked, another concept he had learned, another mistake he had avoided, and another moment when he chose patience. He realized wealth isn't created by one magical decision. It's usually built through many small decisions repeated over time. Save some money. Learn something useful. Avoid unnecessary spending. Invest carefully, and give good ideas enough time to develop. That became his personal philosophy. He also learned that one investment should never become an excuse to ignore risk. A good company can still become a bad investment if the price becomes unreasonable. A great technology can still face competition. And no one can predict the future perfectly. That's why he kept learning instead of believing he had figured everything out. The future was still uncertain. AI could change in ways nobody expected. New technologies could appear. New companies could rise. And today's biggest company could someday face challenges. But that uncertainty didn't scare him anymore. It simply reminded him to stay curious, because curiosity had started the entire journey. A simple question had led him to learn about business, technology, markets, and money. And now he understood something much bigger. The real advantage wasn't having a crystal ball. It was being willing to learn before making a decision. That lesson was worth far more than any single stock gain. Years from now, he might look back at this moment differently. Maybe his investment would become even more valuable. Maybe it wouldn't. And that was okay. Because the real transformation had already happened. He had gone from someone who simply used technology to someone who understood the forces behind it. From someone chasing quick results to someone willing to think long-term And from someone afraid of uncertainty to someone comfortable saying, I don't know yet. That might be one of the most important lessons in investing. You don't need to know exactly what happens tomorrow. You need to understand why you made your decision today. Do your research. Understand the risks. Don't chase hype. Don't panic over every move. And remember, this isn't a story about guaranteed profits. It's a story about learning to think long-term, because the future belongs to the people willing to understand it before they chase it.